Why do we need villains? Because Jedis would have never found the Force or used it. The comic book landscape, the anime landscape, and pretty much every story ever told would be everyone just sitting around being content. And because even the Bible would be pretty boring without a villain. Hello, hey everybody, hello. Hey, welcome back to Faux Pods with Lola, c'est moi. Je m'appelle Lola. Today we're going to talk about why we need villains. A hot button thing to say, but I'll explain. Before that, if you are feeling this content that I create for you every week, please hit the like, please hit subscribe, and please share. Also, hit that notificationer, otherwise known as the bell icon, so that you can get updates and continue enjoying me. That sounded sexual. You know what I mean. Yeah, let's just cut the shit and get right to it, huh? Let's define the word villain. A villain to me is anyone with opposing viewpoints and opposing actions to greater good or moral compass that we all abide by, are shamed if we don't. Someone perpetrating harmful deeds towards children, animals, the elderly, people who aren't at their full capacity or vulnerable. Those people obviously have a different category than, say, someone who is a schoolyard bully or someone who's a master manipulator. But in a way, it starts with the bullying, it starts with the manipulation, abuse, basically. But all of those negative things are all part of the same dark cloud that we tend to shun, we run away from, but is in fact part of all of us. It's in there. We know when we see evil, and we know to condemn it and avoid it. From the time that we pop open our eyes, we have a sense of balance and fairness. We have a sense of all of the things that our parents and teachers and family members then go on to hone further. And I have brought this up in other videos, but I will pose this thought. If we didn't have the darkness, I don't think we would know what the light is. We wouldn't understand how good we had it if we didn't understand how bad it could be. To clarify, I am not condoning any negative, provocative, malicious behavior towards anyone or anything. I do not rejoice in that type of stuff. I mean, sure, to a small degree, a catty kind of playful, bitchy fight between friends or someone tripping and falling, you know, that's humorous. I am never excited for negative things to happen or negative consequences or something tragic. I am never in favor of that. I don't think anyone is. However, I do know that in my own personal experience, because as I've said before, that's the only thing I can speak to is my own personal experience. And hopefully you have some type of relatable situation, and that's why you're watching me. In my own experiences, the only time I really truly knew how good I was or how good I wanted to be was when presumably evil things were kicking my ass. A perspective is a relative thing. I've had experiences in my life that from the other person's perspective were the opposite. Have in our minds that when someone's actions, thoughts, feelings, ideals don't jive with our own, everything that they have going on is bad, wrong, evil. They need to be corrected. They need to be punished. Something along those lines. But when things of that nature happen, any conceivable evil, villainous thing that anyone can do, at the same time, we are enlightened to a whole cachet of life that we didn't even know existed before, potentially. Before that conflict, we had no idea. So I'm going to use an example that I think is fitting in that Disney villains are just as memorable and loved as the Disney heroes and the princesses. Ursula the Sea Witch in The Little Mermaid, when we first meet her, she's introduced as a character. She's talking, I'm not sure who she's talking to. I think she's talking to the little shrimp that she's eating, which in itself is pretty kind of creepy and villainous. But in that scene, she talks about how she used to live at the palace. Maybe they were homies, maybe they hung out. It's not really specified. She is then kicked out and banished. From her perspective, the magical phallic mer village, if you were old enough to remember, that first castle does Triton dirty, grabs Ariel, and manipulates her so that she can get back on top and be the most powerful person in the ocean, I guess. That's her goal. None of it is very clear. But because of what Ursula does, Ariel's dreams become reality. The main protagonist of the story, who you're rooting for the whole time, or supposed to be rooting for the whole time, she then is able to marry her one true love that she knew for a few hours, to live happily ever after on land with her dad's blessing, which is something that would never have happened before Ursula. Ursula does some really nefarious things, and she does things that, it's implied, hurt the Mer village. If it weren't for Ursula, that whole story would have been completely boring. Ariel would have been forbidden, and either she would have run away to the land and stayed there, or found other things to be obsessed with. So pretty much what Ursula did was an eye for an eye type of tactic, which I know tons of people employ in their daily life. They don't believe you should pass justice off to someone else. They believe that you can take matters into your own hands in some way, to some degree. I guess there's a little bit of Ursula in all of us. And that's the thing. Villains don't think that they're wrong. They don't think that they're bad. They actually are the hero of their own story. In the Pierce Brosnan James Bond Die Another Day, one of his confidants that he meets up with says to him, "One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter." That's what I'm talking about. I'm not advocating in any way for malicious means of attaining goals. I'm the opposite, actually. I'm simply pointing out that in the midst of awful, tragic, horrible things, something beautiful can eventually come out of it. It usually couldn't have happened otherwise. Some of the most memorable villains were portrayed by some of the most talented actors. Most actors will tell you, any character that you choose to play, you can't judge them and come into the role with baggage of preconceived notions, preconceived ideas, right and wrong in your head already. All that does is create a false kind of shell around a real raw performance that would be very moving otherwise. Their story is just as important and just as valid as the protagonist's story. They're one and the same. They're two sides. They're yin and yang. That's what that means, by the way, yin and yang. It's yin, Y-I-N, not ying. It's not yin yang. It's yin yang, but that's exactly what that is. The light and the dark go together like this. They're puzzle pieces. They fit together. We would basically just be sitting around talking about how pleasant and lovely everything is. Nothing would change. If you're busy giving energy to someone else, judging them, vilifying them, making them the reason why your life sucks, the reason why you have an addiction, the reason why you stubbed your toe, whatever the reason is, looking at yourself as up here and that person down here, you're wasting a lot of precious energy that you could be using to actually solve your problems. Giving the baddie the upper hand in a situation that is complicated from every angle. There's a different perspective. Potentially could have been avoided a long time ago too. Serial killers, who most people malign as the worst people on earth, almost every instance of a serial killer, they have a history of really deep abuse. They have horrible things that happen to them on a regular basis, things that people definitely noticed but didn't do anything about. Over time, just compounded and compounded and compounded, and then had to come out somewhere. Something of that nature that is then irrevocable. If we just judge them as these horrible evil creatures and that's that, we're missing a really big opportunity to change the way that we treat people with atypical situations, atypical families, things that we may not know anything about, so therefore we have to judge it and categorize it and figure it out. But maybe if there wasn't so much stigma around different or just cycles that haven't been broken yet, maybe then we can prevent a lot of life lost later. That's a very severe instance, and in no way would I say that, again, that's the way to go and that's how to solve the problem. If we didn't have the contrast of something awful happening, we wouldn't have what we need to potentially fix it forever and never have to experience that type of situation again. And I think that's what's missing in any type of tragic situation. There's no coming out the other side and learning a lesson. It's just tragedy for tragedy's sake. It's fear. It's looking at someone or something and judging it instead of going, well, that is highly unfortunate and I wish that hadn't happened, but it did. So what can I do with this information now? And every villain that ever showed up on the scene created a hero. In a perfect world, we'd all be able to see where the villain took offense, how we can prevent it in the future, and what we can learn from any given situation. The villain is waving a big old flag on how to not create more in the future. But all we see is someone who needs to be stopped and silenced, put away for the rest of their life or whatever. I think it would be highly beneficial for us as a society to really start examining where it comes from instead of just being angry it's there. Villains are what put everything into perspective and give us a chance to be grateful for things that weren't taken from us, or really, really pay attention so that next time you won't miss the signs. At my best moments as a human being, I was able to say thank you to all of those who did me wrong, who hurt me, who threw me under the bus, by my own estimation, really, really fucked me over. And it took work. It takes time. It takes writing it all down and figuring out what you're upset about and how you can better yourself from it instead of just being angry. But I chose to do that. I choose to do that every day. Try and work through it, to try and figure it out, and to try and be better for it. I say thank you to all of those things because they gave me my wings so that I could fly to new heights. They're angels in disguise. Sounds nuts, I know. Just the concept of negative things being positive is hard to wrap your brain around. But if you can see how everything is relative and the perspective that you have is just as true for someone else in their own way, if you can see all that, you can understand the importance and the relevance and the value of everybody else on the planet, even the people who do the most damage. I recognize the signs now and I know not to go down there. And I would not know that if I hadn't experienced it at some point. And when I did that, I realized that I wasn't a victim. Sure, I had felt that way, and for a moment I was. Walking around with victimhood draped over my shoulders just prevented me from really moving past all of that. Moving past it and learning and letting it go. I took ownership of my place in the story, instead of it just being about the villain and what they did and how dare they, and swift justice. It was about being able to learn, being able to move on, and create my own sense of justice. We just keep moving further and further into uncertain turf, and I just wanted to parlay this idea and kind of touch on it again. I've touched on it a few times in different videos, that we're all working together. It's a symbiotic relationship. Every relationship on earth is symbiotic, believe it or not, if you choose to see what it is for what it is, instead of it just being light and dark, right and wrong, high and low, to and fro. Look past the immediate things. You can start pinpointing the nuances, the subtleties, the things that really are the cause of whatever happens in life. Jesus, one of the coolest dudes that walked the earth, was hanging out with the dregs of society. He wasn't looking at them and going, well, you're a piece of shit and I can't hang out with you. I'm only going to hang out with people that feel and act and do just what I do. He was hanging out particularly with people who didn't know how to be like him. They'd never been taught the things that Jesus had just innately known. Because he did that, he was able to inspire a whole movement of people that is alive and well today. He wasn't sitting around dispensing cruel justice. If the devil weren't around doing his Machiavellian, chaotic stuff and ruffling everybody's feathers and causing a ruckus, Jesus would probably just be a really cool carpenter that was everybody's favorite neighbor. Just think of it that way. So I realize that's a lot of heavy stuff coming at you at once. I hope it helps you move past kind of the one notes, right and wrong, my team is better than your team. That kind of banter is really fun and it's entertaining, but it just goes on forever. And really break it down and really be thankful for all of the contrasts that you've had that helped you be a better person or helped our country or our society, our world at large, be better for it. I think we're on the right track. Learning from the past, moving on confidently into the future to do better things, to be better people, if we choose to be. So, thank you so much for being here today. I hope that you are having a wonderful week so far. We're not that far into the week, but I hope it's good. It is retrograde again. I will link my retrograde video and you can kind of dive into that one and learn from this retrograde. Everyone's going to be okay though. We're going to make it out one way or the other. We got to just do the work. This is the time. This is the time to do the work. It's not time to do more of the same. It's time to do the work and then move on and create new situations and new structures that really do work for us. And we can't do that if we're just looking back and forth at each other and passing blame. I appreciate each and every one of you that shows up, likes my stuff, that just watches. And if you want to pass that on, please do. It's still extremely hot. We had rain, but it was just like super humid. But I got a cute little kitty fan. Cute, huh? Hang in there. Deep breaths. Go outside, put your feet on the earth, hug a tree, and I will speak to you guys soon.